You know, even speaking as a conservative, I didn't expect Vance to do that well. Please forgive me for being a little bit scattered here. I am attempting to actually be timely with my video uploads for once, and that's definitely true, not an excuse for me to film and have a beer at 10 a.m. So welcome in, friends. I'm so glad that you could be here. My name is Richard. No, wait, that's the wrong order. Wait, no, let me do that. I'm gonna try one more. So if there was one moment that summed up the debate in my mind, it was this one.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry.
This man could possibly be the second most powerful man in the country, and thereby the second most powerful man on Earth inside of 3 months. And he's asking the moderator to clarify federal policy for him. Sir, Waltz, why are you asking the moderator what federal policy is? You dunce. You could be the second highest leader in the federal government within 3 months, man. You gotta do better than that. Waltz just did not feel like a federal leader in this debate. And I know that he is supposed to very much be the ticket balancer to Kamala, that nice rural Midwesterner, gun-toting, dad who coaches the football team. But at the same time, and I don't even necessarily blame him for this. He didn't feel like he was even prepped to talk about federal issues. And even the very specific defenses and arguments that he makes are just really, really broad Democrat talking points. Let me get more into that. When asked about guns, he goes on about Finland.
We know there are things that worked. I've spent time in Finland.
When asked about housing, he blames boomers.
The problem we've had is that we've got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity.
And he even used this exact line during an argument about free speech and censorship, which, yes, was a dodge on the part of Vance, but still used this exact line
afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't wear masks.
Senator, the governor does have the floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
These arguments aren't necessarily wrong. In fact, they're not wrong. They're actually very good arguments, but they're the exact ones that I would expect to come up in a Facebook debate with my mom. They're the exact talking points I would expect to come up in like a Facebook debate about politics. Not the show, not the campaign for the highest seat in the nation, even the number 2 slot. Like I said, Waltz just did not feel like he was even prepped to talk about these federal issues, to the point that it was honestly kind of sad. Every single point that he ever made seemed to start with, well, back in Minnesota.
Especially in a state like Minnesota, we need more workers because our economy's growing, but we need the workforce. I come from a major healthcare state, home of the Mayo Clinic, home to Medical Alley. This program that the vice president is pushing forward is something we're doing in Minnesota. And I will give Minneapolis an example. In Minnesota, federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of federal lands.
However, it should be noted that while the governor's seat in Minnesota may have flipped blue, on the city and the county and on the individual level even, Minnesota is still extremely Republican, and often Christian Republican at that. Like, speaking as someone who lives across the border in Illinois, there is constantly cultural tension between the Twin Cities and Minneapolis and Chicago, because Chicago is a Democrat stronghold, while the major urban centers in Tim Waltz's Minnesota are deeply red. And when you really think about that, it kind of makes this line hit different.
Where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. Rural suicides.
Great choice to bring in the rural conservative vote, Kamala. Choice. Definitely a good choice over Shapiro. Great job. If I may get on to my own personal take as to how this debate ended and what the main takeaways were, I have to say, going in and having a Democrat leader who didn't even feel like he was prepped for the debate, while Vance was quite well spoken. I don't even like Vance, to be clear. I find him slimy. But I've gotta say, having seen the trends in social media, comparing who I think is going to be a leader on this platform in the next 10 years versus who's going to drop off the face of the earth within 5. Looking at politics and thinking who's going to still be here in 10 years and who's going to drop off the face of the earth within 5. Looking across our culture, I've got to say, when I look at the conservative side, that's who I see sticking around. I feel like Democrats are often unwilling to engage with just how much, well, a lot of people are, I don't want to just blame Democrats for that, but a lot of people are unwilling to engage with just how much the Republican Party especially changed in the wake of Trump's first assassination attempt and galvanized in the wake of the second. We have seen competent leaders suddenly finding it within themselves to work with Trump because there's like this moral opening that is cracked open. You know, you can be around Trump. You can go up and shake his hand and not be instantly written off as a slimy corporate ass-kissing douche, you know? Like that, and that moral opening where more competent leaders are able to gather around Trump has been huge. And Vance, as he was on the ticket before, but Vance is very much in there. Vance, Gabbard, RFK, compared to the Democrat side where you have guys like Waltz, who feels like a ticket balancer. He feels like a guy from some rural county that they grabbed and said, hey, who's the football coach? Yeah, come on, you're going to be the VP now. He feels like some guy they plucked out of nowhere, which, again, was sort of the point, but you're not supposed to feel it. He's not supposed to come across as not being super educated about federal issues. And that's the main takeaway that I had from this debate. This debate, along with other trends I've seen, gives me faith for the future of the Republican Party and the future of conservatism in America. But man, do I weep for the Democrats. And I do hope they get their act together, because a world, or at least in America, of completely unchecked conservative rule would be equally destructive and equally doomed to decay, just as the Democrats were in the wake of Obama leaving office. But yeah, I guess you never know what's going to happen in politics. I guess that's all I can say. I have more faith than I ever did in the future of conservative values in America. Waltz felt like this was half-assed, or whoever prepped him half-assed it. You know, something slipped through the cracks here, because he felt like he was ready for a Facebook argument. He didn't feel like he was ready to be a campaigner, to be out in front of the American people and present policy. And that's fundamentally the issue with Kamala too. So we'll see how things work out, I guess. I'll see you guys in the next one.